Whether you're just getting started or looking for a way to up your skills, this is a great video for you because you can just take one of the tips that I offer and it will likely make your job a little bit more enjoyable. Or if you take all 21 of the tips that I offer in this video, I personally believe that you'll have everything that it takes to be at your dream clinic or hospital. Not too long ago, I made a video about what I wish I knew before I became a veterinary assistant. And I was shocked how many people had nice things to say about the topics that I discussed. I was shocked about how much engagement happened in the comments. So I figured it only makes sense to make a video about what I wish I knew after I became a veterinary assistant too. Here's what nobody tells you when you become a veterinary assistant. 90% of your skills are taught on the job. I've been working in vet med since I was 14, and I've learned critical techniques through trial and error. From my experiences, I've realized that some of the skills that they expect us to have should result from a better standard of training. Some of the skills they expect us to have were on me to teach myself, and some resources need to be more accessible. Therefore, when I came up with the concept for this video, I decided I wanted to come at it with the perspective of, if I could start over with everything that I know now, what would my first moves be if I was hired as a veterinary assistant? And because I'm the type of person that needs to combine like different styles of learning in order to really take in some information, I condensed like 6 to 8 of the tips into one piece of paper that you can print out before you go into work, and then you can use it and reference it while you're on the job to make sure that in those first like 2 months, you have something to help remind you of all the little details that you have to remember. You can go straight to the website in my bio and find that in the tools and resources section, or you can stick around for a little bit longer to figure out why I chose to put the information that I did on that sheet. I remember the time frame between when I got hired and my first day as a veterinary assistant. I realized that I wasn't really sure what I should look like at work and what I should bring. So the first few tips are what I wish that I knew to do to help get myself established in that way. So with that in mind, the first tip is that I would urge you to make a supplies bag. I mean, a go-to backpack. Like just like when you were in school, you need to make yourself a go-to backpack with all the resources that you need to help you handle whatever you need personally to do what you need to do on the job. For example, in my supplies bag, I made sure that I had a Sharpie. I made sure that like all of my personal woman needs, i.e. like pads and tampons and stuff like that, I had a little bag for. Chapstick. I had this like cute little tumbler that I made sure that I like brought to work with me every day. I made it a whole routine to like fill it up with water in the morning because you don't realize how easy it is to forget to hydrate yourself. We're standing and moving around a lot, and that can cause you to pass out if you're not taking care of yourself in between. You'll definitely need hair ties. If you really got it like that, I would get your own personal stethoscope. A timer is useful. I personally really liked using my Apple Watch. As a veterinary assistant, it made it so that like when I needed to do TPR, when I was checking pulse, I could just look at the 30-second timer on my watch versus looking at those clocks. I also really emphasize getting your own notebook too. Sometimes doctors will just spew information at you, and the kind ones would make sure that it's written down. But if you can have something to just be prepared and just give yourself something to reference in between all of the different tasks that people ask you to do within a day, that would be a very useful tool to go in your supplies bag too. And all of these resources change depending on who you are as a person, but I feel like you can get where I'm coming from when I say it's important to make a supplies bag. The second thing that I would do is go to the thrift store and find some good scrubs, okay? I will give a disclaimer and say that like at the end of the day, no matter what, buying brand new scrubs is safer. We're wearing scrubs at these jobs for a reason, and they've got a lot of stuff going on them. And so most times when people are getting rid of their scrubs, it's either they've been overused or they might not be in the industry anymore. But regardless, I wouldn't really try to like guilt trip people into feeling like they have to thrift their scrubs. If you've got it like that, I would say do that. But if you can't, I highly urge you to utilize thrift stores. You're gonna need to wear scrubs to work every day, and then also pack a spare pair for you just in case something happens on the job. So getting them from the thrift store is just the easiest way to just have enough scrubs. Not only that, I got some really high quality scrubs for a really good price. But I feel like it's depending on like which area you're thrifting at too. But anyways, the third tip with the supplies bag tip, I'm pretty sure I already mentioned this, but having like one of those thermal cups. There are gonna be times where you get stuff and you're not able to keep them cold. Like sometimes your manager will will order Dunkin' Donuts for everybody or something like that. And just because they ordered it and they get there doesn't mean you get to sit there and drink it. Sometimes the food gets there and you take a sip and then you're handling patients for 2 to 3 hours and now your drink is melted. But if you just always keep a thermal cup with you, then you don't have to worry about that. I also just want to re-emphasize, hydrate yourself. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. It's very easy to forget to hydrate yourself. And I'm one of those people that likes cold water. So me and my thermal cup go like this. And then you'll also like see your other coworkers that have thermal cups too. I've had like a lot of coworkers take the stickers that we get at work. For some reason, we get a lot of stickers. So it's become like little things with like some of the other assistants where we like put all the stickers on our bottles. And like when you work as a veterinary assistant, you just bond over the littlest, most random things, and your tumbler will likely be one of them. So now that I've gone over a few things that I just like wish I knew to help keep me organized, I'm gonna go over what I think are just like main basics that should just be like standard training. The first skill I would focus on getting really, really good at is checking patients in. If you're somebody that's shy, you're gonna have to get over that, okay? You are gonna have to either call somebody and tell them to bring their patient in. You're probably gonna have to walk into the lobby and say, hi, this is blah, blah, blah. Bring them in. You're gonna have to get over your anxieties about talking to people. And not only that, you're gonna have to get really, really good at getting the history of an animal. I emphasize checking in patients because every single clinic that I've ever worked at, that is the first thing that they want us getting really, really good at. Because to be honest, that's like the main reason that we're hired. Therefore, no matter where you work, if you're hired as a veterinary assistant, your first job is checking those patients in. That means that you're gonna have to get a pretty good basic knowledge of the types of problems that animals tend to come in for. And if this is your first time doing it, I don't blame you for being nervous. For most of us, we're choosing to get into vet med to avoid people. So when you hear that this is going to be your reality in the beginning, it's kind of like, what the heck? Regardless, you're gonna have to talk to people and you're gonna have to get good at it. The sixth tip that I think that I would emphasize after being hired as a veterinary assistant is get really, really good at animal handling. That means animals of all sizes and breeds. Now, the types of animals you're handling 100% depends on where you're working, but consider the types of places that you want to work at. If you want to work with all cats, figure out what it takes to learn how to handle cats. If you want to work with birds and rodents and exotics, figure out what it takes to handle those types of animals. If you want a quick takeaway, working with cats, learn the kitty burrito, okay? If you can get good at making a kitty burrito, that'll make it significantly easier for the doctors to do their job. And it also might make the doctors like you a little bit more, because if they feel more confident about you and how you work as an assistant, you could have easier days. The more useful you are, the nicer they are to you in clinics, 100%. I remember one time I was helping one of the doctors handle like a really, really aggressive Frenchie. And because my handling technique was so good, he felt 100% confident that the dog wasn't going to harm him. And because of that, we started like sparking conversations, like casual conversation about like, who are you as a person? What do you do in life? Because you're probably a cool person. Like, he appreciated that I was making his life easier in some ways. But then aside from how it benefits other people, learning how to handle these animals sooner rather than later is better for you because it keeps you safe. You're gonna keep yourself safe. I've been in situations where the way that I learned how to handle animals kept me from getting bit, kept me from getting scratched. But tip number 8, which I think this tip is super duper 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 important, okay? Do not skip this step. Every single clinic I've ever worked at has a very specific database that they rely on to do every single thing that they do. Whether it's Avimark, whether it's Cornerstone. I'm sorry for you people out there that still have to manage physical records and have just a giant wall behind them of files. But regardless, get good at your database. Every database functions differently. Some places require you to put notes in on the client board. Some places require you to send checkup emails to people, and all of those processes change depending on which software you work with. So if you just got hired as a veterinary assistant, or it's like your first month or 2 working there, take learning how to utilize the database very, very seriously. This is one of those things that I feel like I learned best through trial and error. I've worked in some places where it really wasn't my job to touch any of the records or any of the stuff on the computer at all. All I was using the software for was seeing which patients were coming in at what time. And I could look at their histories, of course, but I wasn't relied upon to update their records and put in their important information. Whereas I've worked in other places where I got in trouble if I wasn't fast enough at updating those things, you know? So regardless of either side that I've been on, it's significantly better for you to just help yourself and learn how to use the database. The next few tips that I go over are important because these are things that had been mentioned during my training, but had often been dropped the ball on. Things like learning lab basics, how to use a microscope, how to do urinalysis, how to chart the samples that we receive. What are the core vaccines? Which ones are for dogs? Which ones are for cats? How often do we need them? How to use stain and ear cytology. How do you identify bacteria under a microscope? What are the normal vitals of a cat? What are the normal vitals of a dog? What is the basic biology of a cat? What is the basic biology of a dog? These are things that I've recognized had been noted for me in my training, but they often drop the ball on. Or also sometimes I thought to myself, the training is not thorough enough. You know what I mean? We were told how to mix vaccines, but never really taught what they do, the differences between how they impact the animals. You get what I mean? These are things that you're taught in tech school. These are things that you're taught as you get into veterinary school, but you're not really given the knowledge behind things when you're an assistant, yet you're dealing with them too. That being said, everything that I just listed, I urge you to take the time to increase your knowledge in these areas, increase your confidence in the advice you can give about these things. I'm aware that there's a lot of nuance that goes into all of these different areas. So what I went ahead and did for you guys is I took all of the things that I just listed and I put them on one cheat sheet that you can just print, keep inside your supplies backpack, and just reference while you're on the job, while you're still learning, because there's a lot to learn. And I'd rather you learn ahead of time and be proactive rather than reactive. Okay, so that was 9 through 16. The 17th tip that I would give after being hired as a veterinary assistant is learn how to pivot during the somewhat rare circumstances. Like, for example, do you know what the protocol is for your clinic or hospital if kennel cough happens? Some of the places I've been trained in prepared me for that, but some of the places I was trained in didn't prepare me for that. Do you know how to behave when there's a euthanasia happening? I emphasize this tip because not only do you need to know a different style of how your clinic or hospital operates under these conditions, it also heavily affects your role. For example, if you have a dog that comes in with kennel cough and you didn't know that after an animal with kennel cough goes into a room, that room is going to be off limits until it's disinfected fully, and your job is to load patients, you'll catch yourself in one of those really, really stressful days at work because you weren't prepared on how to pivot, and now you might be in a situation where a doctor is behind because they don't have a room to go into. And if you would have known the fact about the kennel cough beforehand, you would have probably readjusted how other patients were roomed beforehand, if that makes sense. Now, there's a lot of things that I've watched can go wrong when rare circumstances happen and you're not given and you don't have an idea of what it looks like in these situations. The 18th tip that I would give to somebody who is working newly as an assistant is don't be scared to do blood draws or to give vaccines. Get over that fear sooner rather than later. Now, I'm not saying go get all needle confident and just start poking everything. What I am saying is find somebody you trust to help train you, or find a way to learn that you feel safe in, and be adamant about getting to that confidence. Because there's so much more that goes into blood draws than just collecting the blood. So if you can get past that first step, you'll be beautiful, because there's a whole array of steps after the fact, like which tube top you should be using. What's the difference between a red and a purple? Do you know the difference between what test you're running and how many red or purples you need? If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're hired as an assistant, this is something you need to go back and look in your training book about, or go research a little bit more. A lot of places don't even require their assistants to learn how to do blood draws. However, I've been in places where they rely on strictly assistants to do blood draws. Regardless of your role, this is something that you do want to learn how to do, because if you work in one of those places, hi, hello, how are you. One of my new fosters is coming to say hi. Hi, baby. But yeah, anyways, I think that's something that you shouldn't just sit around and wait for your team to help you get confident in. I think that that's something that you should be a little bit more adamant about. The next tip that I would want to emphasize, and this is for the people who I feel like have a passion for this stuff, who want to get into their role and want to maximize the opportunities and experiences that they can have working in the clinic or hospital that they choose to work in, which is if you can learn how to like monitor during surgery, that would make you a lot more useful as an assistant. I feel like being able to help during surgeries is like the highest skill set you can gain as a veterinary assistant. So like if you could take a look at your training, figure out what it takes for you to be able to help during surgeries, you'll really be able to maximize your opportunities and experiences as a veterinary assistant. And the 20th tip that I'll give, which I don't think is a necessity, but I do think that it is actually very, very impactful on your social experience, is learn your doctors and learn their preferences. Like every doctor is different. You can be told to go pull up a rabies vaccine for a doctor, and with one doctor, whatever needle you decide is perfectly fine. Whereas with other doctors, some of them will be like, I'm only accepting 23 gauge needles. You get what I mean? And I was the type of person that was just like, look, I don't care what needle I grab. You're the one doing the poking. So if I just know this person likes this thing, it's not that hard for me to do it. And lastly, if you're the type of veterinary assistant that decided that they would watch a video like this and take all of these tips seriously, and if you're the type of person that would work on your own time just to make sure that you are making the most of your role as a veterinary assistant, this tip is the most important for you. Make a list of all of the reasons that you choose to work in the environment that you got hired in, or of all the reasons that you would just choose to work as a veterinary assistant anywhere, and hold yourself accountable. You need to constantly check in and make sure that the place that you're at is checking off the boxes for the reason that you chose to work there. If you go back to this list and you say to yourself, dang, I'm having a hard day, but every single reason that I chose to be here is still happening, then you'll have an easier time figuring out what it takes to solve that problem. However, if you go back to that list and you say to yourself, the reasons that I even chose to be here aren't even being checked off, hold yourself accountable to finding some place that is like that does have these attributes, checking these boxes off. All of these companies try to use the words family and small unit or team to try to manipulate you into staying for reasons outside of the purpose of you even applying to the job. And I feel like people could hear this tip and overlook it, but out of all of these tips, I personally think it's the most important because this tip isn't something that's taught. This is something that you have to teach yourself. If you're the type of person that decides all you need on that list is the money that you want to get paid because you're just happy to get any experience, you're going to get any experience, and you just need to prep yourself mentally for that. But if you say to yourself, these are the reasons that I would choose to work here, not just because of the money, not just because of the experiences. I also want these out of the relationships that we build. I also want these out of the standards of your procedures. If you make a list of all those things, it's your job to hold yourself accountable for your dreams and to make sure that your feet are going in the direction that you say you want to walk in. I'm saying this as somebody who's worked in a lot of clinics. Hear me when I say I've never once struggled getting a job. I've never once been fired. But what I have struggled with is finding a place that maintains the check boxes that it takes for me to stay. But that's it. That's all I've got to say. My goal with making these types of videos is to just help encourage people that know what they're interested in, know what they enjoy, know where they want to be, optimize those opportunities for themselves, because we all only get one life to live, so we might as well live it up, okay? And that means in every way possible. That means that whether you're working as an assistant, whether you're working as a tech, or you're working as a doctor, you deserve to build the lifestyle that's worth it for you to just keep pushing forward. But yeah, this video is already long enough. If you have any pieces of advice, please feel free to comment down below. I haven't worked in every single veterinary assistant role that's ever existed anywhere, and I also don't even know how things operate in other countries outside of the US. I barely even really understand anything outside of the East Coast when it comes to working as a veterinary assistant. So if you have some more insight, drop it down below so that more people can gain more information on how to help them in their very specific circumstances. If you want more tools and resources, please, please, please go to the link in my bio. Join the communities that I have. You don't have to be figuring this out alone. You could figure out what other kind of tools and resources I am offering on top of my YouTube videos. Otherwise, feel free to look around at the other topics I cover on my channel. I appreciate you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.